Welcome back to another edition of AI Insiders by AI Marketers Guild. We have a very special guest who I've been learning from for a while, and I was excited to see some latest work, and I've been really a source for some her material that she's been writing. And when I saw everything that she's been researching and writing and everything, I'm like, well, this would just be a treat to share it back with this audience, who she's inadvertently learned from, as I've tried to take some of my things I've picked up from the community and distilled that for her. So, Dr. Karen Sutherland, please introduce yourself. Warm welcome to you, and excited to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm zooming in from Queensland, Australia. It's uh just after 2 a.m. here, so
Thank you for
hopefully I
that.
will get to. Okay,
Quite,
thank goodness for coffee,
If,
hey?
if I ever looked that like presentable at 2 a.m. would be a miracle.
I do this quite a bit, so I'm sort of getting better at having a small sleep and then getting up and getting going back to bed. So, so no, thank you for having me, and I'll just bring my slides up. And as part of that, I will explain why I'm here and what I've been up to. Now, this session is going to be about looking to the future, and I have to say that as a caveat, no one really knows. There's a lot of speculation, but I'm going to share with you what I found through the research that I've conducted over the last year or so. Now, about me, I've been an academic teaching in the field of PR, social media, and strategic communication for nearly 13 years now. And I've been in the field of marketing and communication for nearly 30 years, which is crazy. And um, now I'm still an academic, but I also am a director of a digital marketing agency as sort of my side hustle, and which is why I am used to not having a lot of sleep, so I could do most things. And in terms of my AI expertise, so I have done multiple certifications in the space. I've studied at the University of Sydney. I'm also the co-director. My state here, we have in Queensland, we have an AI hub. And so I live on a place called the Sunshine Coast. I'm the co-director of the AI hub for our area. And I've written a book in which I interviewed David for as part of my research called AI for Strategic Communication. And I did this because there's so much confusion around, particularly in that field where I'm from. And there's a lot of people doing experiments and saying, I'm an expert, listen to me. And I thought that's well and good, but I wanted to go out and talk to more people and actually research and see what's happening in that space. And so this presentation will focus on chapter 12, which looks to the future, where I've done an analysis on the literature and then also the people that I interviewed and my survey. So for this research, I'll begin by just saying I interviewed 41 people, and they were from a range of countries. They were scholars in the area of AI and also strategic communication. I interviewed practitioners, and I also interviewed AI tool developers just to get a greater insight into how these tools are set up and how they work in the field and for the practice of strategic communication. And then I surveyed 400 practitioners across Australia, UK, and the US, and then did an extensive literature review and then wrote the book. And I think while I wanted it to help other people, gee, it was an adventure. And again, getting up in the middle of the night to talk to people all around the world about AI, it was a real treat. So I really enjoyed the process. And in my field of strategic communication, I mean, we know it's becoming such an important part of it. While, according to my research and studies I've seen, adoption rates aren't really that high as yet, but it is being an issue and being used more and more. And we all know as well that the best way to use it is as a co-pilot, as a collaborator, not to do the whole job for us. And that because generally as a strategic communicator, you're representing a client or an organization. So you really need to be mindful and keep sort of your ethics and creativity as part of that to make sure that you're representing that organization in the best light possible. But we'll begin by going through the stages, the predicted stages of AI evolution according to the literature. And again, I have to say there is so much speculation around when this is going to happen and even if it's going to happen. But some of the stages are starting to clearly come to fruition. And we'll go through each of those. So clearly there's the present stage and AI agents, which we've moved into that now. Then AGI is predicted to come pretty soon, but from the literature, it's in the next 50 years. So anywhere from now until 50 years in the future, because no one can agree when it's going to happen. And I'm not sure if you've kept up to date with a lot of I follow a lot of the people from OpenAI and things like that on Twitter or X as it is now, and they are saying it's going to happen in the next few years. I think all of these AI platforms are really vying to be the first, and there's a lot of speculation around whether they've actually done that and how that would be measured anyway. But that's the next stage, and then that stage will unlock some other stages that will really change more the way that we live more than now. And this is technological singularity, which I'll explain, artificial superintelligence, and then post that period. But we'll move through each of those to explain a bit more and also how they could affect the field of strategic communication. So we're in ANI now, artificial narrow intelligence, and this is where, and we're sort of moving into the next stage. So ANI clearly it's narrow because it's very task oriented and it's only AI can do sort of one task at a time. So it's very specific around what it can and can't do. However, it is saving us a lot of time and we're seeing these efficiencies. I mean, even anecdotally, I'm working a lot with agencies, communication agencies and teams to integrate AI, and they're just blown away. Like this week, I showed a video workflow using Descript and then moving into Opus Clip, and the person who's in charge of video content at that agency was like, this is going to save me days in terms of production. And we could see those efficiencies in terms of time. Quality still needs to be, looked at though. And in terms of how it's helping, it's helping to identify, just looking at as well, not just the production, but also the analysis of data, identifying trending hashtags and engagement. Also, it's providing greater insights into audience, and for strategic communicators, audience research, even marketing, audience research is the key to everything because that's how you learn how to connect with the target audiences you're trying to sell to or just build relationships with. And so that's been very helpful in this present stage. And then we move into AI agents, which is happening. So it's happening right now as expected, 2025 to 2030. I think at the moment, there's still a lot of development that needs to happen. But I mean, even just experimenting with tools like Manus shows just how effective it can be. And PR professionals see agents as just a way to further personalize. That's been another key benefit of AI in marketing and communication, that personalization, which is key to really getting people to do the preferred actions that you want from a marketing or communication campaign, is making it more about them and customized to them and their preferences. So it's helping with that. In as a scenario, a crisis scenario, which PR and communicators often have to deal with, using an AI agent could really help to get the information that is needed, where the human could then focus on the getting the brand tone right and the necessary approvals through an organization before communication happens. It's also great at sort of doing those tasks that you don't want to do. An example of how I use Manus recently is I'm part of a research cluster at my university, and I've been charged as because my area is communication, I have to look after our website. And so what I did was I used Manus to go off and look at the website we already have it, analyze it against a range of other research websites. I said, just go off and find research websites and then come back with a list of recommendations based on your analysis. And then it even created the web page, like a mocked up web page to show me what it thought well, not that it can think, but what it recommended in terms of how the layout should be and the information and that sort of thing. It took about 10 minutes, but doing that myself, that would have taken me, a few hours to go off and do that research. So it can do so much more. And I think playing with agents is going to be helpful. I find at the moment, though, they're sort of a bit hit and miss. Sometimes it'll run out before I want it to do the complete job. And I'd love to hear more about your experiments with agents as well. But I see it's going to be so much easier to get things done in the future by having those focused on communication tasks, even the event coordination side of things, as it says there. So there's so many little jobs involved with event coordination, and getting those to go off and do that would be amazing. I think one of the issues is going to be when we start to give it credit card information and going off and making purchases. I think might be a bit hit or miss with that as well in the beginning, but I think over time it's going to become so much more streamlined, and it's going to save a lot of time and effort to do those little tasks. Then we move into AGI, where there's been so much talk about AGI in the literature, but also in the industry as well. And so this is expected to be around 2030 to 2050, but some industry experts are predicting it to be even sooner than that. And there's been times, I think, have you seen in the last year where there's been moments where some organizations have said it is, or it's shown that it could perform at an AGI level. The issue is that it's consistently inconsistent. So AGI means that it's capable across all the tasks rather than just there are certain tests you can test for AGI, and it can pass the test, which is quite complex, but then you get it to do a simple task, it can't do it. So it's making sure that it can perform consistently across those. And so this is where it's human level intelligence, and it's consistent across a range of tasks. It can think critically, and I think one of the interesting things about AGI, it said that it can improve itself. It's self-correcting. So it keeps learning and increasing its own knowledge without you having to do it for it, which is both exciting and terrifying at the same time. In terms of a strategic communication context, it would be really great. I mean, imagine just being able to translate not only language but cultural context as well. Because sometimes translation in language for communicators, you can translate it, but it loses that nuance and that understanding of what's culturally acceptable. So imagine AGI being able to communicate at that level. It would be so much faster, and the breadth of communication would be vast. So that's just one of the ways. But of course, there's so many use cases for AGI. And then following on from AGI, so AGI, once they reach that point, it's going to unlock other stages where this is this stage of technological singularity. So this is expected to be after 2050, but the thing is, if AGI is unlocked earlier, this will happen sooner, according to experts in the literature. And this is where AGI is smarter than us. It surpasses human intelligence, and that means it's going to be able to grow exponentially as well. And it means that because it is smarter than us, it's going to be able to really solve a lot of problems and develop and conduct research and do all those sorts of things at a much faster rate than what we can. The issue is going to be about remaining in control of and maintaining human oversight when we do that, when when AI is smarter than humans. In a communication context, it could mean that the AI could, like, say, if it was an emergency situation, it could draft the instructions for evacuations in natural disasters because it would be monitoring what was going on and could actually do that on its own. We'd still need to try and maintain oversight in that. But the human role could mean that it was just making sure that it's aligning with those community values. But it means that we could act much faster in those situations as well. And then the previous stage unlocks ASI, artificial superintelligence. And so this is where the AI surpasses human intelligence across everything. It can do everything
This is a
better than
Q&A excerpt.
it can. Sorry, it do everything. Create it can in terms of creativity, in science and research. And so this is the stage where scientists and researchers believe that or predict that ASI is going to be able to solve problems like climate change and cure diseases and all sorts of things that we haven't been able to do yet. And we don't know yet what it will be able to do. In a strategic communication context, it means that it's predicted that ASI could actually anticipate crises before they even happen and respond accordingly, and or even try and mitigate those before they actually happen. It can detect issues and things and emergencies before they actually happen. How amazing would that be? And I guess I am talking into the future of what the literature is saying. So the issues again will be that loss of human oversight because it's going to be smarter than us on all levels and maybe outsmart us. So it'll be, how do we control it, and can we control it, and will we then just be overly dependent on the AI because it will do a lot of the thinking for us. I wanted to move on now and just to show you some of my research findings from my study, but then we're going to finish on just some things to think about for strategic communicators at each stage of what I just shared with you. In terms of my survey findings, feelings about AI and the future of AI were as follows. So half of the people I surveyed were excited. So it was pretty, I mean, they were pretty positive in terms of thinking about it. So nearly half were optimistic, 44% were intrigued about what was going to happen. But the main concerns are around job losses in the field and over-reliance, which we're seeing that as well. And I can tell you as an educator, this is really happening with our students. They're, rather than being taught the task and then learning how to use AI to assist them with that task, some are just going straight to get the AI to do the task, and it's very badly. And so we're sort of seeing this even in junior members of in strategic communication firms where they're just over relying on that. Did you want to say something, Dave?
Yeah, I was just curious based on this, and you were just starting to go there. It was if there are any differences between like more senior and junior members, right? Because I hear concerns from more senior folks like those in this room, but also that like who are you going to hire? Like if you don't need a person to write a press release, and like how is someone going to get their training in the field?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And then it is a real issue because that's right. It's actually it could prevent people from moving up those ranks and learning that, because people will just say, well, I'll just use AI because it's less expensive than having a staff member. Yeah, that is actually happening. And I think we've seen reports of that. We've seen companies, particularly in the last month, come out and say we're AI first, which I think is like from a PR perspective is not a good way to promote your company. You should always be human first. But yeah, just saying that if we can't get AI, you can only hire people if you can't get AI to do that. And I think this, yeah, absolutely is going to be happening more and more. So it's not just a concern; it's becoming a reality, for sure. With the over-reliance side of things, we're finding with the companies that I'm working with, so many do not have a policy or they're not regularly training, and that's a real problem. And so some have said, no, I just don't use it, which is really, again, unrealistic because then you get the case of shadow AI where you've got staff members who are using it under the radar in ways that you probably wouldn't want them to. And so it's there's an instance here in Australia where, and it was just someone that I knew. She was a sales executive, but worked closely with the marketing team on a SaaS product, and that was quite a junior team, and they were really happy. They were like going through the work really quickly. But then she looked on LinkedIn, and they were putting up posts clearly generated by AI that was saying the product had features it didn't even have. So not only did they not understand the product, AI certainly didn't understand the product, and they were putting out information in that way. And so it's just making sure that there are real rules around how it's used in companies as well, and people aren't just over relying on it being that human in the loop. And then misinformation, that's another example what I just gave you of what can happen because it's still hallucinating. One of the scariest, I think, findings from my study was that 40% of the people I surveyed deemed fact-checking AI-generated outputs as only moderately important. So that was a worry. And then nearly 50% felt the same way about editing. They were just not even editing what the AI was giving them. And I don't know about you, but even when I give it the best prompt, I still need to tinker with what the output is before I let it go. Like I never copy and paste it. And I think, this is going to be something that we need to focus on going forward and currently.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, and one very quick example that I just shared on LinkedIn the other day was I get some like AI powered news roundups, and so I was really surprised that one of the top headlines it showed the current president with an executive order being signed. But then the headline was Biden bans US funding, right? And so like somewhere in there, it still had Biden as tagged as president. You can see the post right here. It's like a great AI news roundup. All of the
yeah,
original sources said the current president, right?
yeah,
And yet
yeah,
it still had some mental block, if you could call it that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not, as I said, even what I mentioned before, I love using the phrase it's consistently inconsistent. And so sometimes it gets it right and it's amazing, but you have to still check that it gets it right. You can't just assume that it's correct. Um, Also with
Oh,
my
and
oh,
sorry, while I'd already paused, I saw Karen has his hand up. So
oh,
Yeah, I
sure,
just want to
sorry.
mention I have a RAG chatbot, so I use my own content for AI. And I
Yeah,
think that's one of the really best ways for you to understand the potential and the problems with AI. So one of the things
mm,
that I found is, sometimes it goes outside, it responds to my questions, it creates. So the advantage that I have is all the content that I put in there is my content. So I'm familiar with what the
yes,
content is. So when it generates the responses, sometimes it does a great job of generating responses. It actually goes even beyond my prompt in the way that it formulates it, because my prompt is like, give me specific references of where you got it from. And sometimes it generates the two or three responses, and then in the last one, it gives me so it interprets itself, and sometimes it just, it can't recognize, or if you vary your question a little bit, even though the content is there, it's not capable of answering it and where you think it should be able to do it.
mm,
So applying AI to your own content, I think will give you a lot of insight into what its capabilities are instead of, having it on the general internet
yeah.
where you don't know where it gets the content from.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love actually Claude, where you can set it up to, to be your voice, and you can train it on content as well. I use Claude a lot for writing, but yeah, no, I totally agree with that for sure. Um, with my yeah, my interview findings, there were only 22% that predicted increased adoption, which was interesting because I'm sure adoption rates are, are rising quite rapidly. Um, Automation was seen as something that is going to be key for strategic communication. And then, of course, that personalization, even though the percentages were quite low. What I found with when I asked the interview sample about the future, it was just spread. They were the key themes, but you can see they're not very high in percentages because there were just so many different themes in there. And so the takeaway for that was that uh, PR professionals, they're optimistic, but they understand they have to tread very cautiously. And Lisa, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the sort of warnings that you're highlighting for agencies, particularly agencies hiring young people who have gotten used to using AI without critically examining its output. Um, a friend of mine's daughter was recently dinged in college for submitting an essay that the professor believed was AI generated, and it wasn't. But the hoop she had to jump through was that she had to write an essay without, in the presence of this professor without any technology. She had to sit there in the room and write another essay with a prompt that she hadn't been given in advance. And I'm wondering if you would imagine that that will become part of hiring in the future, that kind of.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, I know when I was a junior, going for roles in communication agencies, this clearly before AI, I would have to do complete tasks, and we were given a time period and things like that. Normally it was online, but yeah, I mean, maybe that will be. I know in terms of higher education, I think in some European universities now they've scrapped any sort of online um, exams, and people have to go in and actually do they ask questions, and they have to show that they understand the subject in real time rather than similar to what your friend's daughter had to do, just to show that they understand the material. So maybe, yeah, maybe it will. Because I think training within agencies, from my experience, it tends to be quite and nice to have. It's not a regular thing, and it really needs to be. And I think having that sort of guidance would help to maybe alleviate that a bit. So maybe getting juniors in and then just making sure that they're mentored and trained through how to use it effectively, and in a way that they understand the task before they can give it to the AI. I think that's the problem. They don't understand the task and they outsource it, and it's terrible because they don't know what a good version looks like. And yeah, so no, that's a good point. This is a quote from one of the people that I interviewed. And so he he said, I mean, the thing is with AI, it's dark and it's light. It can do amazing things, but of course, any technology is a double-edged sword. And so he was saying that while it's slow, the adoption rate within the industry, within strategic comms anyway, um, there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens on the darker side, but on the positive, it's, the speed of content production um, and strategy and things like that is going to free people up to do, more of the sort of people side of the business. Now, this is like a to-do list, take it as you will, on looking at each stage and what this could mean and things to consider with each stage for strategic communicators. And so clearly at this stage with ANI and agents, it's prompt engineering, seeing how we can integrate it well and seamlessly into what we're doing, automation clearly, and also those ethical guidelines and training. For AGI, it's again working on high level strategy development. So we humans do the strategy, AI handles the execution and the sort of more mundane tasks of that. but also developing emergency protocols in case the AGI fails. So if it's not working, what we do, and then making sure there are frameworks in place that human creativity and oversight is maintained. Because it was funny, last week there was a tech festival here on the Sunshine Coast where I live, and I hosted the AI part of that. We had a panel discussion as part of that around, is AI endangering or empowering creativity? And it was a really great range of speakers. We had the product manager from Leonardo.ai on the panel as well. And so the outcome for that was that AI, while it can help you with your creativity, it's not the same as something that you've done 100% yourself, because it doesn't have that sort of human sparkle. It doesn't have your experience in there. And it'll be interesting to see if AI could ever do that. But at this stage, it's maintaining that that creative oversight to make sure that the humanity remains in what we're doing. It was interesting to come up with some of these points. I actually used AI, so I used all the literature and things like that, and then I asked AI, went back and forth a bit about what advice would you give to strategic communicators about navigating these stages in AI development. And what was particularly interesting was the technological singularity part, where it said that we need to make sure, and this is in the book, we need to make sure that there aren't any periods where there isn't a human in charge of an organization, because the AI might jump in and take charge, and then we won't be able to get the control back, which was interesting. And we will need to keep trying to assert and build the case for humans being involved. Like, we're going to actually have to keep stating our case that we are relevant as humans in processes, which was quite kind of interesting, a bit scary as well. But yeah, just so when we reach that stage where AI is much more intelligent than us on every level, we're going to have to really make sure that we stay in control of that in some way, and plan for sort of contingencies and make sure that there is emotional intelligence in the decision making, particularly when those decisions are around humans. You still want a human involved in that process. And so next steps, I mean, you're all here because you're AI enthusiasts. So it's not like, I don't think there's any of you who are just starting out on this process. So you'll be across, a range of tools and practices. And I'm pretty sure that you would be keen on having an AI policy and integration strategy. I only put this in because normally I do this presentation for, say, communication industry bodies and things like that, and their members. And it's interesting through my own experience with agencies in particular, there's a big focus on the tools, like teach me the tools, but there's no real strategy about how does this integrate with what you're doing? Is this the right tool? Like, there's no sort of lead up or policy or plan. It's just show me Gamma, show me Opus Clip, and which is great. But I think there needs to be more of a strategic approach to what we're doing, and also evaluating, is the output and other results better now that we're using this AI tool? So rather than just adopting it, but keeping to, evaluating and continuously improving. And regular training is really, really important. And also revisiting your ethics policy, because things are changing all the time. And so that's it from me. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of training and helping with policy and all that sort of thing. So if you know anyone who needs assistance with that, please feel free to point them in my direction. And I've started a Facebook group, for those who are still using Facebook, around the book. And so it's sort of, I'm live in there every week, and I do a free webinar every month. And there's sort of a community of communicators in there, and other people as well who use it for strategic communication, who are sort of posting and sharing their experiences too. So
Well,
you can just...
one question I'll start with here. This is tremendous. Thank you. And I welcome other questions from the community. Is Uh, are you seeing like just different kinds of enthusiasm and adoption like geographically? Like is Australia like when you talk to Australians versus Americans, just as one example, like are you
Yeah, oh yeah.
seeing different
Well,
attitudes?
let's just say apparently there was a survey completed and it shows that Australians uh, trust AI the least out of any other country in the survey. So it's been quite interesting. There's some, it's sort of, if you've ever seen the diffusion of innovation model, where it's sort of you've got the enthusiasts and early innovators and then the laggards. And so there are a few people who are right into it and are really keen, but then there's others there's a lot of caution here around the use of it. And I mean, I've been in this space for probably 3 years now, and I'm just starting, like the training opportunities are just starting to get increased where people are like, oh, I think I need to do something now. Like it's taken, a few years of constant messaging and showing how it can help and things like that. I think people are just waiting for it to slow down and realizing it's not going to. So it's not going to slow down. So and in the States, I have clients there too, and they're much more open to the use of it. Over in Europe, it's sort of a bit hit and miss. But in India, I do some stuff with India as well. They're right into it. Like they're very open and enthusiastic about AI over there. So it's a real range, really.
So
Uh, I was just going to say too, the Institute for Public Relations have some really great resources for strategic communicators as well. So the link is there, and I'm happy to supply these slides that have all the links and everything in them as
uh,
well.
I'm also curious on the PR side because, like, we've seen times in the past in the U.S. where, like you have firms like Edelman here was one of the first to launch a digital practice of practically any agency, and like they built a lot of that credibility. But like, there's a lot of these ebbs and flows, right? And now you also have, as far as the access to the tools of the trade, that anyone on this call, if you've got $100 in your bank account, like you could get like three or four pretty good ones and actually do arguably work that competes with a multi-thousand person PR firm. Um, are you seeing any like if you're looking at who is leading the way here, are you seeing it more like top down, ground up? Is there any rhyme or reason to that?
It's really mixed. I mean, some agencies were from the beginning were looking at, okay, we need to do this, but then there are others who don't want anything to do with it. Like they just I think they see it as undermining what they do,
Mhm.
and they want to avoid it. And then you have others who some also feel like if they are using it and charging their clients, they feel like they're being unethical as well. There's that sort of issue of how do I bill for hours if I'm using AI and it's not taking so long and those sorts of things. So there's those sorts of issues that came up in the research too. So it's actually very mixed.
And and
Um,
and and like, did the perspectives that you incorporated, like I mean, do you have any opinion or data on how much clients are demanding transparency right now?
no,
Hmm.
no, I don't have any data on that, but I think from like just hearing anecdotally that I know that some clients, if they can tell AI is being used, then they're not happy.
Mhm.
But I think they're looking at the quality more than that. So if what is they're doing and they're paying for is working, then and achieving the goal that they set out to achieve, then I think that for many clients, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've even wondered from some work I've seen recently is like there's sometimes I can't tell if someone's using AI because it does look like AI wrote it, but they might have actually just been adapting so much of their writing to these AI styles that I'm like just knowing who it is, I'm like, this actually might be human generated, but we're learning to write these. I mean, sort of like how people were just copying the same LinkedIn formula for years, and then it's like, just God, please, like, I want to just like block anyone who's using it because it's the same story, just different words. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why you would want to copy AI, like the
But you just
cheesy.
get so used to these things. Yeah, it's like if you know like watch Braveheart too many times, you start speaking in a Scottish accent. So
Yeah, I swear if I don't want to see another M dash again. Like I just keep
what about the
noticing that.
rocket ship emoji?
Oh, and yeah, it's or the word unleash or unlock like that. I'm so sick of that. So
Um,
does anyone have any questions? There was quite a lot of stuff in the chat that I haven't had a look at yet.
I have a comment. It's probably like in the here and now, but it connects to the validity of the information that comes from some of these AI providers. And it goes to like prepping for a media journalist interview and feeding questions or asking AI, give me some questions that typically come from this journalist as I prepare for X, Y, and Z interview on this topic, and using it more as an internal prep tool.
Mhm.
Are you seeing it being used like that as well? I heard that on another webinar of a PR firm that said, hey, we're trying to use it, but we also need to make sure we put in a reality check when it comes to really understanding that journalist who they're prepping for.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't heard it used in that way. I know it's used a lot for creating sort of talking points and things like that based on information to then you know prepare a spokesperson to go out. But no, I haven't heard it used in that way. I've heard it used as well to do sort of quick profiles on people before meeting them and things like that. Particularly now, deep research is a really great tool that I think would be helpful with that. But yeah, I think that's a great way to, you know, to prepare a spokesperson for sure by using it for that.
hey, thanks, Ivy. Other questions, comments based on all this?
Yeah. Hi. I've got a comment, I guess, question. My son is graduating from college this weekend, and there's been a lot in the media about it being very difficult for recent college graduates to find jobs, and some people are blaming AI. And I'm just wondering if our guest or anybody on the call has a perspective on that. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the company, isn't it? And their openness to training new, you know, people and emerging professionals as they enter the industry. Because some organizations are very passionate about that and committed to that, and then there are others who just want to save money. So I don't think it's going to make AI is not going to make it easier for sure, but I think there'll still be those companies who are really committed to that. What sort of field is your son going into?
Political science.
Okay, yeah. I think, I mean, in many organizations, they still have they do have grad programs, but they're so competitive. So it's really hard now to be a graduate going out. I mean, my students, we try and get them getting practical experience in their field while they're still at university, just so that they've got that body of work before they go out. But it's yeah, it's not easy for sure. And I mean, it's a smaller population here, of course, compared to the States. So yeah, I guess it's just trying to find those companies that are not looking to cut costs in that way. I wish I had a better answer for you.
One thing that makes me optimistic is he was a very early adopter of AI and is
Yeah,
really, really good at using it. So he may be one of the ones that, you know,
yeah,
can use it to
absolutely.
his benefit as opposed to being left behind.
And I mean, I think that's going to having that approach, being able to then, even when you're in an organization, identify efficiencies using AI. I think that's going to make you really invaluable. As long as you don't find an efficiency that replaces you with the AI, I think being that person, being that go-to person, I think absolutely. If he can show that in an interview that he's across that and some, I guess, wins that he's had in that area, even personally, I think that will help him stand out for sure.
Yeah, and this also, you know, I was actually talking to a recent grad this week, and they're trying to scout things, and they actually they put together a tremendous website showcasing their work. I actually told them to share it in serial marketers because it'd be good inspiration for others and not just recent grads. But I also was telling, and like he was very interested in this intersection of AI and marketing, and so I'm like, well, my bias is also lean into community where you can. I don't care if it's something, you know, one of my communities is just like Hive Index and other places. It makes it easy to find communities. More and more referrals to AI marketers guild and serial marketers are now starting to say ChatGPT, Perplexity, like, you know, so we're not doing a lot of GEO, AEO, whatever you want to call it right now, but it's like I could just organically starting to come up. And I referenced something that I realized someone his age would probably never have heard of, and he gave me a very blank look. But I said, you know, there's also this factor on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. And so, and now I'm trying to describe a one panel New Yorker cartoon to him. It was a very, very awkward conversation, but with this idea that if this was his target audience, and you know, if I think of like certain recent guests, like much deeper on the corporate side, like Adam Kleinberg at Traction or Matt Britton, and you know, at Suzy, they're giving out their emails here just like you, right? Like if you want to work for these people, work with them, and you say you were actually on that call, you know, I'm not asking for some like minimum like years of experience before joining one. So it's like if you can find these things and like be part of this, then all of a sudden, like if you went to work for Matt and you told him you had joined one, he's giving a talk every 3 seconds. So you join any of them and you want to follow up, like he'd probably connect you with his recruiting team.
That's
Like,
a great point. Yeah. Yeah. I'll
um,
encourage him to join communities,
but
definitely.
yeah, and it's even just like that, like interacting with people you respect on LinkedIn. Like if you have something to say, yeah. I mean, I admittedly have a lot of followers on LinkedIn. I know who's commented more than once. Like I know there's some people on this call who are frequent commenters, and that's fine for those who aren't. But it's like you know, I see that all the time, and I'm gonna remember if if you know, like Ivy reaches out to me a few years from now because like she's just very present and engaged. And so like, but it doesn't matter who that Ivy person is. Yeah. I see a couple of hands and I want to make sure to catch them before the end. David Cutler, welcome back.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good.
Um, friend of mine is a professor at Boston University and teaching a marketing course, kind of advanced. And the only way that he could get to find out if he was actually teaching them anything was to have a live debate class and have a discussion because they didn't want to. They're very comfortable with these freshmen, no, excuse me, undergraduates are very comfortable with writing it using AI and understanding it, and they know it. You know, they're good students, good kids, but they can't express it, right? And
Mm,
how do you test if they're actually using AI at home versus actually knowing it? So he brought me in because I'm the ultimate extrovert, and you know I've kind of a coaching to get people to even introverts to be okay with sometimes they're facing the other way. Sometimes there's games you can play just so they can actually communicate what they know without having to look at a screen. So the fact that your son is already doing that, that's good. It's probably partially because he's your son and he has the personality to do that. But the confidence to understand things comes from uh, a public debate. So I believe debate class is going to be coming back into the place, and there's no substitute for that unless you have an earpiece or whatever the case may be. I just thought I would add that's happening
Yeah.
at the BU level. You're paying $80,000 a semester to get there. You got to learn something. How do you demonstrate that live?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I mean, particularly, I mean, I teach courses in strategic communication, and trying to get students to communicate is difficult. So that I think that would be a great way to do that.
And they fight it. They fight it a lot, and they don't think they should
I
have
bet.
to. Yeah. But again, there's techniques. I mean, we literally,
Yeah.
I brought brown paper bags and put them on everyone's head. So the girl who was refusing to do it, all 20 kids had a brown paper bag and that except her. And it became funny and it was loose and it was, and then she meekly kind of did her presentation and discussion. But we owe it to ourselves to stay ahead of these robots and not just blame them passively.
Yes. Yeah. Good
Well,
Thank
point.
you for your comments.
Well, appreciate that. Jim, did we miss you for one last quick question or comment? Anyway, yeah, well,
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was muted. I couldn't find the button. Thank you very much. I don't know whether to call you Karen or Dr. Sutherland, but
Ah,
but
Karen's right.
something you mentioned earlier kind of surprised me because I'm going to drop this in chat. 2 years ago, this month, I met a woman named Heather Brown, and she's really focused on using AI in universities. Okay. And that led me to Australia. Through her, I was introduced to Carlo Iacano. Do you know him?
No, I don't know.
Okay. He brought me into this group of like 13 people that, when you said Australia is really cautious, I would agree with that. But it's the wellspring of how to use AI ethically, strategically in education. That it's for me, it's the most important part on planet Earth is Australia, because the stuff that they put out is really thoughtful, and I focused on this as well, because he's got me. I mean, Carlos introduced me to all these people that the papers they generate are just extraordinary.
Yeah. And it's about AI. I think I have heard Carlos speak at a higher education conference here. He's
So,
quite animated. He's quite a personality, I think, if that's
but
the color.
Heather's focused on debunking the fact that these things can actually detect, that these detectors are really detecting it. And so there's a lot of false positives. And she's in
Yes.
groups, and it's interesting because it's mostly women that are driving this in the United States. So Heather's brought me into, this group, and then Carlos brought me into another group. And I got to say, you're in a really, important part
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
the
And
conversation. Like Danny Liu at University of Sydney, he's got this YouTube video channel that
yeah,
he pumps out something like once every 2 weeks. It's great stuff. And then you got
yeah,
Phil Dawson, who's like the most authentic AI guy and he's in Melbourne. And
yeah.
I can go on and on. You
Sounds
probably
like the pocket, but where the broader, say, business and population are very cautious. So you found the enthusiasts and the innovators, which is
but
great. I wish there were
but
more of them.
but they're colliding with the caution. They're trying to give guidance to the
Oh yeah,
caution. It's really
yeah,
It's wonder 100% because Australians are wild, crazy motherfuckers that don't give a damn. So there's no sacred cows. I mean, there are, but at least you can poke at them. So that's why Australia and other cultures kind of fly in the face, and that's what we need right now. We need to stand up and have meetings like this where we actually talk about how overwhelmed we are because the deluge is getting better. You know, this is an important conversation, and thank Australia for having the balls to say so.
Well, on that note, I know we're slightly past time and don't want to keep Dr. Sutherland up any longer than you have to, but thank you for all this. I mean, just tremendous research and work, and look forward to continuing to get your insights and sharing them with the community. Thanks everyone for participating today. We've got a heck of a town hall next week that I think you'll be in for a treat then, and look forward to seeing you all soon. So thanks again, Doctor, and hope you get to join us again sometime.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'll be coming to the States in October. So
Oh, wonderful. Well, hope to meet up then if you're in New York as part of your tour.
Great. I'll be finishing my tour then. So
Wonderful.
I'll definitely contact you. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.